Welcome to the Fame Influence Podcast, bringing you the heavy hitters in marketing, influence, music, and entertainment industries. With your host entrepreneurs, Till Paris and Kevin Puckett.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Fame Influence Podcast. My name is Till Paris.
And I'm Kevin Puckett. I'm joined here with my co-host, Palmer Davidson.
That's me, coming to you live with Maui coffee in my bloodstream. That's all it's fueling me this morning.
Nice. And we're the hosts of the show today. And before we get started, how about a word from our sponsor?
Oh yeah, speaking of Maui coffee, it's weird. I was just thinking about that. Our show is proudly sponsored by MauiCoffeeCo.com, which features a rich tasting coffee that is grown in volcanic soil at the base of the West Maui Mountains. As an exclusive benefit to our listeners, head on over to MauiCoffeeCo.com and receive 15% off your order by using coupon code FAME15, that is PHAME15, for 15% off your order at MauiCoffeeCo.com. You won't regret it.
Our next guest is Chief Marketing Officer for Spring Venture Group, a holding company representing leading insurance agencies focused on the senior health market. Together, with a team of high-performing, results-driven marketers, he is responsible for the company's brand strategy, as well as developing and executing innovative marketing programs to reach and attract the addressable market. Since joining Spring Venture Group earlier this year, he has already led a series of groundbreaking initiatives aimed at positioning the company as a data and technology leader. Prior to joining Spring Venture Group, he was the Chief Marketing Officer for National Debt Relief. During his tenure, the company achieved record growth, quickly becoming a leader within the debt resolutions industry. Before National Debt Relief, he held a series of leadership roles with companies including J.G. Wentworth, Medical Guardian, Barclays, and Hart Hanks. Please welcome to the Fame Influence Podcast, Grant Eckert.
It's great to be here.
Thanks for joining us here, Grant. We really appreciate it.
So we've heard a little bit about what you do, Grant, but tell us why it's influential.
Well, again, great to be here with everybody. Really appreciate you having me. I think, in terms of why it's influential, I think we're making great progress on a number of fronts. It's specific to Spring Venture Group. We're quickly changing the way that consumers shop for health insurance. Long ago, there was a time where our audience would have gone to people on the ground, right? People knocking door to door to compare options for their Medicare health insurance needs. And that's quickly changed, especially in the last few years. And we're really leading that effort at Spring through technology and data and our ability to market really one-to-one to the consumer to meet their needs in a much more efficient and effective way.
So talk to me a little bit about the data side of this that you guys are doing. What's kind of cutting edge on the data side that you guys are involved in?
Well, I'll tell you, since joining Spring, I've been really impressed with what the company's built out over the 10 years we've been in business. Our business today lives and dies off of data and technology. And so what does that actually mean? Because everybody's always talking about data, and there's a lot of fluff. There's a lot of buzzwords out there.
Well, the social dilemma that just hit Netflix doesn't help either, right?
And so, exactly. And so, there's, for us, at Spring Venture Group, we're targeting consumers that are aging in. So when you reach the age of 65, you now have this beautiful thing called Medicare that's available to you, right? It's something that you earn throughout your life, and you get to this point. Medicare is a great option. And then with that, you want to supplement your Medicare needs with either a Medicare supplement policy or a Medicare Advantage policy.
Well, I know Till's in the market right now as well, so this might be something at the end of the podcast that you hit Till up about.
So just for our listeners at home, just so you know, Kevin is implying that Till is old.
Yeah, just to make that clear.
Yeah. As long as I give it to you in your 40s, we're good to go.
We're all aware how just marketing and advertising has changed over the years, right? It used to be kind of a spray and pray. You built out these campaigns, you go on and market in newspapers and on TV, and you kind of set everything up, and then you sit back and you wait for it to kind of take shape. And you hit your numbers or you don't hit your numbers. Today, it's a lot different, right? We can reach a consumer. We can map out our addressable market, our target audience, and we can meet them, especially online. And that's where, leveraging the power of digital has changed. Our audience, our demographic, 65 plus, is online and engaging like never before. And so we don't have to do this spray and pray approach like decades ago. We can actually map out through really effective modeling who our consumer is and how we really drive that experience. And so we can reach them online through obviously paid search. Facebook has proven to be incredibly effective. We can also meet them offline in their mailbox through direct mail. But a lot of that is born through data. So it's getting the data right, testing a range of different models. And then as people inquire with us, and they're filling out our forms or calling in, we can also be incredibly intelligent about how we match them with one of our licensed insurance agents in real time, right? We have agents that have different skill sets, different capabilities. We have agents that might be more effective with people on the West Coast versus people on the East Coast, simply by their accent, right, or their gender. But furthermore, we can make sure that the right person is getting to the right agent as they inquire. So in real time, in milliseconds, when someone's inquiring and they're putting in their basic information, first name, last name, zip code, especially date of birth, we're appending data to that inquiry, to that lead in real time. More than 200 different data points are getting appended to that person to decide, okay, you know what, we can help you, we can't. And if we can help you, we're routing them intelligently to the right licensed agent that can quickly and effectively meet their needs. So when they do get matched, it's a conversation. And so it's really the whole funnel, right? To our marketing that we push out to the consumer is a lot more intelligent, a lot more one-to-one. And then, so we're not just getting a lot of responses, but we're getting the right responses. And then from there, again, there's this experience that takes shape so that the consumer's needs are being met, and we can be, as marketers, more effective in how we deploy our investment and how we manage that experience all the way through to them becoming a new customer. And then after that, right, we're using all this data to get ahead of things. So when a customer looks like maybe they're on the fence, they might want to switch policies, they might be looking for other options, we can actually anticipate that and get ahead of them with additional communications, additional touch points, to make sure that we're meeting their ever-changing needs.
That's awesome, dude. It sounds like you've taken a lot of these things that I've found on the back end of marketing from our end, right? Whenever we're putting something out on Facebook or Twitter, or whatever platform it might be. We don't advertise on Twitter. What am I saying? No one does that. Anyway, it sounds like you're taking some of those tools and actually using them internally. So I have like a 3-layered question here. First of all, I'm really curious. I keep hearing you use the term one-on-one marketing. And I think you've kind of gone into that a little bit. I would love to hear how you get so specific and so granular that you feel it's one-to-one. And then what tools are you using to process this data internally? Is this software that you guys have developed? Is this something you've hired out to have developed? Because it sounds like that in and of itself would be really attractive to businesses. If you could take all the data, from all the clients you have and begin to extrapolate out some behavior shifts and things that you can offer differently, things that you can communicate differently, down to the very rep that they're dealing with. That is absolutely fascinating. And I think it's a really positive sign for how we can move intelligently into the future. But if you could address that question, what does the one-on-one marketing mean for you, and what tools are you using to process this data?
Yeah, so it's about the pursuit of one-to-one, right? So it's not a perfect science, right? I think It's evolution more than anything else.
Got it.
One of the examples that you can consider is direct mail, right? Direct mail has existed for decades now. It's, I think, still today, even though we're very digitally focused, it's really a cornerstone of our marketing mix today. And you hear people over the last few years especially start to the idea that people are moving away from direct mail. I still find as a direct response marketer that direct mail is really one of the most effective ways to get in front of our target audience.
Well, yeah, I completely agree, man. Especially if it's like paired with other efforts. You can't just send out a mailer and say, "Please God, make this work." It's one part of a multifaceted structure. I'm sorry, continue.
No, that's it. I mean, taking the words right out of my mouth. And so that's where it's augmenting direct mail or amplifying direct mail with the latest and greatest technology. And so. Yep. Not just about doing direct mail on a silo, but it's about coupling it with with the latest capabilities of digital. And so today, we're using data to identify who those folks out there that not only fit our target audience, but have a propensity to respond. That's the modeling we do. And then we reach them, then we deploy our direct mail, but it's not just deploying our direct mail. We're really approaching it with an omni-channel approach. Right. So taking that person, those individuals that we're mailing, and really mapping them out to their digital presence. So we can simultaneously deploy an email out to them. And so just days before the direct mail piece hits their mailbox, they might be getting an email from us. And the direct mail hits, right? They've already at least seen us in some and potentially exposed, even just opening the email, maybe they didn't respond. Now they get the direct mail and we're not coming in as cold. And then at the same time, we're deploying display marketing through platforms like Facebook. So we can actually, again, target them through multiple channels. And what we find time and time again is when you do that collectively, you drive better response. But as a marketer that's really focused on maximizing our spend, you actually drive higher, more effective, or lower, more effective CPA. So you get a better response, lower CPA. And so it's really looking at just the breadth of technology and that whole experience. And kind of and looking at all the tools and putting them together to maximize that response.
Well, your CPA is everything in a situation like this, and something that Fame was a real early pioneer of is all of this data and cutting edge trends, particularly to drive those lower CPAs and maximize budgets, from the small to incredibly large corporations that we represent. I think one of the biggest things that we always say as digital marketers here is it's not our job to be romantic about where the marketing dollars go, meaning that I think you have people that find themselves in silos. Oh, we're the digital guys, or oh, we're the traditional guys. And at the end of the day here, really those two shouldn't be operating in a silo. They should be operating in 2020 together, working for the benefit of the corporation to lower that CPA. And I don't think there's anything in 2020 that is dead. Do I think that it's not our jobs to be romantic about where we spend our money? It's where we can get the most amount of attention for the least amount of dollars? Sure. But I think you need to be looking at everything on the table, because I think there's a lot of corporations that are very romantic about digital marketing right now. And if you were to approach them to outsource work or, for a second eyes, they'd be like, oh, don't waste your time doing any of that, because they're very romantic about digital marketing. And they're potentially missing a huge portion of your guys' really effective marketing funnel.
That's it. That's the name of the game. So we today manage, and really the organizations I've been at throughout my career, I think it's about maximizing that dollar and how you do that, right? And I think that there's a lot of, I guess, sexiness associated with digital, right? But not forget about the traditional channels and how those have advanced, right? TV, you have TV, right? And you get the idea that TV eyes are moving away from your traditional TV. But now you have the advantages of connected TV, right? So you have the ability, again, to reach your specific audience through things like connected TV, advances that have been made there. So I think it's about looking at your traditional channels through a new lens, but also, to your point, right, is not being married to anything that's historically worked well, right, and not being stuck in a specific spot, but just constantly looking at the entire landscape and being very dynamic in how you
have to be married to results, not necessarily avenues, right? And for us, when we diagnosed or at least took a look at some of our traditional ways, we were even sending out, because products are just becoming so cheap anymore, we started sending out actual real wallets to people that had print text in them, and we found those to be incredibly effective. So, I would employ everybody to do what you just said. Analyze and take a look at their traditionals. Don't just say, oh my God, let's move on to the next greatest thing. I think you should always be analyzing and always be maneuvering and always be advancing in every way. And quite frankly, all three of those should be working together simultaneously.
Absolutely. And I think, one thing, I don't want to get too far off track here, but one thing is that measurement piece, right? And understand, as a marketer, one of the greatest challenges is understanding the halo effect of some of these efforts, right? Like TV, for example, or even using direct mail. Direct mail, there's a halo effect that is trickier to directly attribute, performance against, right? And so many, the other challenges so many of us marketers have is really that direct attribution. And so it's very easy to say, hey, TV isn't working as well because people aren't dialing the unique phone number or going to the unique link. right? But there's a halo effect to these efforts where people are seeing our direct mail or seeing our TV, and that's driving them to some of the other sources that we leverage to drive acquisition, like paid search, like people going directly to our site. And then so we've gotten really, really focused on, especially direct mail is a good example of what is that halo effect. The beauty part of direct mail is we know who we mailed. So we can retroactively go in and look at everybody that we mailed and look at all of our responders in our database and map them back to our direct mail effort. And that's a key component to really, I think, realizing the success of that very traditional channel is understanding that halo effect, but also being cautious not to give it too much credit. That's the other challenge, right? And not to give a long-winded overview here, but that's where also you have to be careful not to give too much credit, right? Because our models are really plugged in on direct mail, which they are. These people, if you didn't send them a direct mail, would they have responded through some other means?
Yeah, a cost-benefit analysis then on the effectiveness, but not only the effectiveness, but then you start to ask yourself, would that money have been spent better somewhere else and lower the CPA? It's always a constant back and forth, right?
Well, and this reminds me of a conversation I was having with my buddy Mark Zuckerberg last week over coffee. What? No. But yeah, we were discussing no, it wasn't Mark at all. Obviously, but last touch attribution is definitely it's a problem within marketing, because if you're only looking at the last thing that pushed them over the edge, if you're only looking at the straw that broke the camel's back, that doesn't really work too well in this situation. It's like the good straw. You know what I'm saying? If you're only looking at that last thing, then you have no idea the customer journey that led up to it. So I love hearing other companies taking a healthy approach to understanding the full picture of, like, the direct mailer had this impact, this had this effect, et cetera. It's really awesome. And to go back to my original question that you just danced right around, what softwares are you guys using? What tools are you guys using for this processing? Because this is like next level stuff that, we're doing a lot of this in-house. And I know how we approach it, but I'm definitely curious to hear what softwares you're using for this.
Yeah, so a lot of it, there's a lot of different softwares, right? And so we're constantly testing. I think that's the other piece of it is just having a test and learn approach, right? And this is true across what we're talking about here with attribution and trying to map out that journey. So one of the solutions that we've been looking at is really closely is LeadsRx, which is
a good one.
Heard of it, but trying to map out that journey to understand, it isn't about last touch attribution. That's one of the challenges that we've had is so many people are focused on last touch, and that's a slippery slope. And so LeadsRx allows you to look at that journey, right, and try to map out, okay, when was the first impression served that might have driven somebody to the site? Maybe they didn't actually come through your funnel, but they came to the site and they come back in 2 weeks and they convert through another source. Historically, if we were just looking at last touch, that last source would have gotten all the credit, right? And so it's trying to map it back. A lot of it is also within Spring Venture Group is built out in-house. And that's one thing, I just joined Spring Venture Group earlier this year, and that's one thing that has impressed me the most is our business intelligence team. Johnny Hilgers, shout out to Johnny Hilgers in our company who leads that team. It's incredible. And I think when you think about competitive advantage, you can carve out a nice competitive advantage with your BI team. And so a lot of that that's out in-house is allowing us to really understand the true effect of all of these efforts. Then we also use other solutions like Journaya. Journaya allows us to understand how people that have engaged with us might be coming back into the shopping experience across other sites, right? And so we can actually see our current customers and where they are shopping. So we have a customer, right? And we want to retain that customer. We want to be their agency for life. So if we, through Journaya, if we can actually see when customers of ours might be starting to get the itch to shop again. And so we can see that they're going to a range of sites, starting to shop their insurance needs. And again, that's where we can get out ahead of that and preempt that and hopefully pull them back in and make sure we're the ones helping them shop, not somebody else.
That's amazing.
Grant, your guys are obviously extremely savvy at your data mining process and very mindful of all the different touch points. I have questions around the 65 plus market here. when you're targeting, I mean, you have your intelligent prospecting where they're going through the funnel, they filled out a form of some sort, and you're able to, capture their behaviors and be seen and do that brand recognition and also, access other touch points. But is it that stereotypical that 65 plus is on specific platforms or not as tech savvy? I mean, where has the progression went where as technology rolls into our lives, how savvy is the 65 plus community getting? And can you prioritize any platforms that work better than others when you're out doing your intelligent prospecting?
Yeah. So, it's changed significantly. I think, the stereotype that I don't know if it's out there as much today as it was just a couple of years ago. The stereotype is that the older demographic is not tech savvy. They're not online. When you look at our industry was really made up of boots on the ground, right? So it was insurance agents in a certain town that would go door to door, and they would help you shop for your insurance needs, your Medicare supplement, Medicare Advantage needs. It was them hosting town halls, and even up till recently, up really until COVID, that was still a big piece of how consumers in our target demo shopped their insurance options. And that's how the Aetnas, the Anthems, the United Healthcares of the world would drive acquisition on their side. And it was a meaningful piece really up until this year. And so COVID actually, I think, accelerated the adoption of digital and technology.
Thank God.
People need to enroll into Medicare supplement, Medicare Advantage. And so I think it certainly accelerated it. But now today, I mean, our audience is really, they are becoming very tech savvy. I mean, when you look at Facebook, for example, one of the most engaged audiences is grandma and grandpa and mom and dad, to some of our to some of our frustration, right? Those of us that their parents and commenting on everything, and I think they're actually starting to move to Instagram, which is the next beat. But you're seeing that they are quickly catching up, and they are becoming very tech savvy. And so we're seeing that across digital platforms. We're seeing that certainly through search, but that's existed for quite some time now. But I think those companies that aren't realizing that are missing the boat dramatically. And so you really have to leverage the power of technology. And I think that's really the direction that we're heading in as an industry is that piece.
Well, this notion that 65 plus aren't on these platforms and they aren't tech savvy is not only not supported by the data, it's simply false at this point. We represent a hearing aid company here, and this was a very common thing we got pushback from their marketing department was, well, our demographic isn't on there. And I'm like, it says who? 65 plus is actually the largest growing demographic now on Facebook. Why? For really three reasons. They're bored, they want to see their grandbabies, and they're not as untech savvy as people led on to be. And just like when people were moving from car or buggies to cars, people figured it out because that's the way that the world is going. So this notion that they're not on there is soon to leave many companies in the dust that don't adopt, and most certainly is going to reward those market share wise with those who were early adopters.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like every time I get on a new platform, my mom ends up on it about a month later. It's like, and I won't know she's following me until all of a sudden she comments on something inappropriate that I've posted. I'm like, Mom, I'm a 33-year-old man. Let me post what I want. But to your point, 100%. I mean, like with the Hearing Connection, the company that we run ads for on Facebook. I mean, we get them leads every single month. So it's like if these people aren't on this platform, then what are these stacks of leads that are coming through?
Yeah. Well, I got to ask, how do you envision the future of your marketplace, Grant?
Yeah, so it's interesting. We're up against some big competition, right? We're not the only player out there, although I think we're probably, certainly the best. But that's just my thoughts. But in terms of the competition, we're up against some big publicly traded companies. Some actually local we're headquartered in Kansas City. We have some other competitors that are here right in our backyard. And, what we're seeing is that I think everybody embraces technology, right? But some folks I think, you have to be careful there's a human aspect, especially to our business. And so I don't think you want to go all in on technology, but that's certainly where we're moving. And so I think it's kind of a hybrid blend of technology and that human component is really where the future is. And some of our biggest competitors, publicly traded competitors, I think are missing the aspect of that human element. And it's true in the consumer experience. And quite honestly, it's true on the marketing side, right? If you lean just entirely on technology, I think you're going to miss opportunities. And then when you get into that consumer experience, I think, there's a lot of folks in our industry that are moving towards this self-enrollment. So online self-enrollment and, Medicare, take a look at Medicare supplement. There's just so many variables associated with it. We do a lot of research on our audience. And one of the biggest insights that come out of that research time and time again is how complex, right, Medicare is. I mean, it is complex. It's just a jungle. It's a bit of a mess, right? There's just so many different nuances and pieces to consider. And so if you leave it up to the consumer to just have to shop on their own and go through this, digital self-enrollment experience, I think you're going to get a lot of consumers that maybe are enrolling into the wrong policies that don't effectively meet their needs. And so that's where, again, it's that hybrid, right? That's where our experienced licensed agents come in. And they help the consumer go through that process hand in hand with technology to make sure that they're getting the right policy that meets their needs and their budget.
Dude, you've just blown my mind. So you're telling me that giant corporations are missing the human element and that a government program is an absolute mess? Can you slow down and explain
and
these
they're
things?
out of touch with their consumers?
I'm going to need a minute. Let's pause the recording. I need a minute to recover.
I think it's so fascinating too, because it's one of these things that I think most of these companies have known for the better part of this decade. They just have been able to sit on so much corporate cash and lethargicness that they never thought it would catch up to them. But as companies like yours continue to adopt the best and biggest technologies, but also then realize that user journeys and customer experiences are everything and make more of these hybrid models, they're losing market share by the day. They're scared, they're franticking, and then they hope that their piles and piles of corporate cash will make up for their lack of what I usually call ethical selling over the last 10 years.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And I think the road to the finish line, right? It's not easy, right? And that you can take shortcuts, but I think how you build something long-term sustainable is going the hard road, right? And constantly thinking about the future and being quick to adjust to change, right? I mean, COVID was a big change where the change towards our industry, change towards everybody's lives, for better or for worse. It's driving significant change, and I think some of those big corporations, right? They're tripping over themselves. I think some of them are just late to the game, right? And so the road to success is not an easy one, especially if you want to do it right and you want to do it for the long term. But you also have to be nimble. You have to be able to react quickly and anticipate change.
So I do have a question for you. You seem like an ambitious guy. You're relatively new to this company, like you said. As you've gotten more integrated and as you look to the future, what are 3 goals that you have? And this can be, your personal goals within the company or, company goals. But what are 3 goals that you're keeping in mind as you move forward into the future, being a part of Spring Venture?
Yeah, well, I think it's a great question.
Thank you.
Mine at the top of the list is people. Which sounds a little bit cliche, but
yeah, it does.
There is nothing more important than people, and just surrounding yourself with just strong talent and really motivating, right, and inspiring. It's just that I think is, people put prioritize other things, but people is at the heart of it, and so really, continuing to influence and inspire and develop people within Spring is probably number 1.
Nice.
Number 2 is growth, right? We're a growth-driven company. One of the things that attracted me the most to Spring when I joined this year is just our focus on growth. I mean, we're a high-growth company that's well-positioned to grow into the industries that we serve. And so growth is number 2, right? And I think that's how I'm measured is, as a marketer, is the ability to drive efficient and scalable growth. And then number 3 is building our brands. So, Spring Venture Group, we have two great brands, United Medicare Advisors and Smart Match Insurance Agency. And those brands have done an effective job of growing into the categories we serve. And so the next step is really to build, sustainable brands, right? I think so many direct response companies focus on driving leads, right? And it's leads, and it's new customers. And I think the ones that really start to, jump ahead of everybody else is those that also put stock into the brands that they build, right? What are they?
Amen.
Place? What is their vision? What do they stand for? What is their tone? What's their personality? Those things, especially as you grow, are of equal importance. And so I think those are really the three areas that I'm focused on, especially in the future.
That's fantastic. So before we move on, just side question, totally related to that. Would you say you look more like Ethan Hawke or Tom Cruise?
Yes, very important.
Oh, when he laughed,
I'll take an Ethan Hawke. Like Training Day, Ethan Hawke.
Sure.
My wife's sister says I look like Donny Osmond.
Okay.
I could Donny Osmond, which I'm not as much a fan of. So I'll take Tom Cruise. I'll take Ethan Hawke all day long.
Nice. I gotta ask, because obviously Fame, representing most of the people that we do, we're very focused on reaching Gen Z. And some of the things that you said, it is something that I don't feel like a lot of companies like yours have the foresight on. And I'm so glad to hear you say it, because things like silence and not focusing on core values and what the brand stands for with these newer generations coming up, that is more than not being used against these brands that remain silent on major issues that are going on right now, that they take the old corporate philosophy that if we just stay out of the news, the better. We don't want to comment on any activism going on right now. And quite frankly, that speaks volumes to the generation that's coming up. So really focusing on this brand awareness and what our message is, what our vision is, what our core values are moving forward, I think is the definition of a sustainable brand.
Absolutely. So many, I think so many brands play it safe, right? And I think it's oftentimes to their demise.
Yes.
They're just not investing time, resources into that. And I think that's important. That's important to how consumers think about you. But I'll tell you, it's a hell of a lot more important for how your employees think of you.
Amen.
Right? And if you take care of your employees, right, then you know that your customers will be well taken care of.
Yeah, I think a lot of brands are doing what's comfortable rather than what's needed. And, some of the data can be scary it's a leap of faith for some of these. Kevin was touching on it earlier. We were talking about it earlier, where it's, they have the luxury of having that money in the bank from those old days. And now there's a lot more competition. You can have a company that can come up within 2 years and be, fierce competition, where before, you're pounding the pavement, you're kicking down doors. And now with a proper and an extremely savvy campaign, can really, disrupt the market.
Absolutely.
I know you didn't, well, maybe you did. Were you up at night when you're a child thinking like, this is what I do, and this is the industry I want to be in? What led you to this industry?
Short answer is, when I was a kid, no, this isn't what I thought I'd be doing. I went to, it's funny enough, when I was a little kid, I thought I wanted to be a garbage man because I get to ride on the back of a truck, right?
I'm the trash man.
Down the street, riding on the back of a truck, seemed pretty badass. And so for a while, that's what I wanted to be. And then actually I went to school to become a pilot. So Ohio State, the Ohio State University, to become a pilot. It's hard to make a career out of it anymore. And so so that's when I came across marketing, right? Towards the end of undergrad, and then I started to pursue my MBA, and I really started to understand marketing. And what attracted me the most was digital marketing. I just fell in love with it. Funny enough, when I was at Ohio State, I had me and my buddy started a business called Jersey Dogs, which was basically a hot dog cart. Hot dog cart. We didn't have a lot of money, but we were two ambitious guys that wanted to run a legitimate business in college. And so we started a hot dog cart, and it took shape on the campus of Ohio State. And it was it was probably the most fun I've ever had in my life, was slanging dogs at 2 a.m. But I loved it. And that's really when I started to get exposed to the idea of actually like building like a brand. And Jersey Dogs was exactly that. We sold t-shirts. We had a following. we went beyond hot dogs. We sold cheesesteaks and quesadillas and burritos, and we just had people lined up at our cart like late night, and it was just incredible. And so I think that's when I started to get the idea of like, hey, building something is a lot more fun than flying a plane. Like flying a plane's great, but building something is just, there's nothing else like it. And so I think that's really what attracted me into marketing. And so, then I started to work in digital. I started my career really in paid search, which I, still today is, I think, a true passion of mine. Probably to the demise of those on my team that manage paid search, because I dive in and I love it, because it's really at the bottom of the funnel, right? It's connecting with your customers. But throughout my career, I've really found that I love marketing as a whole and just the advantages, and it's incredibly competitive. And so I'm a competitive guy. And so I think the chance you can, you brought it up before, Till, you kind of alluded to it, you don't have to be a massive company to quickly carve out market share. You just have to be nimble, fast, and you have to be largely smarter than some of the big players out there. And if you leverage technology and you think through things and you're able to act faster than most of the big guys, you can quickly take share away and grow relatively fast. And so that, throughout my career, I've moved and advanced, and I've been very lucky to have some great influencers that I've reported into. And so it's allowed me to really advance my career in this world of marketing.
Grant, what's a question that people don't ask you that you wish they did?
Maybe the question around, do you look like Tom Cruise? I think the biggest question we get asked, I think within every organization I've been at, I think marketing is, there's so much going on behind the scenes that I think the rest of the companies that I've been at maybe aren't aware of. Right. I think people see, in the direct response world, you see people coming in and they're buying stuff online or they're generating leads. And I think a lot of people tend to think it just happens, right? We take it for granted, quite honest. And so I don't think people throughout the organization outside of marketing ask enough about the details. And so that's where I think, I call it the marketing of marketing. I think, as marketers, we have to do a really good job of showcasing everything that's going on, right? I have an incredible team here at Spring that are just working their tails off. And so it's really incumbent upon us to showcase that and let the rest of the organization, like, all the great work we're doing. And so I think if there's one question, it would be, what are some of the details of the work you are doing, right? And I think that's sometimes that gets missed.
Well, I'll send this to corporate and we'll clear that right up for you. He wants you to micromanage him and ask him a lot of questions.
When you have the experience of actually going out and starting something like you did with the company in college, and you're forced, the feet to the fire to make something work and trial and error. I think most good marketers have learned by trial and error. I think that's kind of the marrow of marketing. And you distill that down. It's a lot of testing. It's a lot of seeing what out there's working, and to make something successful. I think that's why you have these companies that can come up in a year or two and be, ridiculous competition. But I got to ask, with everything that you've been through and worked on here, I mean, what next?
That's a great question. I think next is just growth, right? And so it's a goofy answer maybe, but it's what's next changes probably daily. I mean, you guys know it, right? You guys know in your business, and the people you talk to is what next changes on a day-to-day basis, right? And that's how you have to kind of think about it. The technology that exists today, right, may be obsolete tomorrow. And so I think what's next is growing, is just growing as an individual, as a team, as a company, and just constantly on the hunt for to test. I think what's next is just testing. And I'll tell you, like that goes true. That's true across everything. It's true in paid search. My past company, National Debt Relief, we were the leaders on the paid search front. And just, by an order of magnitude, like nobody could do paid search as well as we did, but we were never complacent in it. It wasn't like, hey, this is great. All right, this is humming. Let's keep going. We would constantly test different platforms, be it Marin, Quantic Minds, Google's TCPA. And so, we're constantly, I think we were just never, it was never enough. We were never complacent. And that's what we have to be as marketers. That's really how we run our marketing here at Spring, is we're constantly trying to be better than we were the previous day.
Well, Grant, where can our listeners find you and connect with you online?
Yeah, check me out on LinkedIn, on Twitter, Twitter handle Grant.Eckert, and otherwise, never be afraid to hit me up. For those competitors that are listening in, I'm probably going to send you to voicemail or reject. For everybody else, happy to connect and talk shop.
Bro, after the conversation we've had, any competitors, they're just calling looking for a job, okay?
Yeah.
So don't be don't be rude, man. Take those calls.
Well, Grant, we want to sincerely thank you for being on the show. Really enjoyed your insights and your experience, and it's always a pleasure to talk to a marketer with that has that soldier experience.
Really, really great to be here. Really a pleasure.
Thanks so much for being on, Grant.
That concludes another episode of the Fame Influence Podcast. Catch you next time.